Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is your latest Manchester United news. I hope you're all feeling good this morning. I actually feel positive for the first time in a while around Manchester United because we got positive vibes last night. We'll be talking about what Ten Hag said last night. Strong message for Garnacho. You could read it in a way where he's being quite critical of Garnacho, but he's not. He's just being Ten Hag, and I think this is where people like Sancho have made a mistake because Ten Hag is quite abrupt in what he says, but he's saying it for the greater good of the player, the club and the fans. We'll talk about that as well. Also, amazing story from yesterday. Amrabat to Liverpool was a whisker away. A whisker away. We were that close to him actually wearing a Liverpool shirt, and that's just incredible. And I suppose that feeds into some of the things I want to talk about this morning. We'll also be talking about a few other bits that Ten Hag said, Amrabat himself, positive vibes FC. But we're going to start off with the sale. There was a bit of breaking news that came in yesterday that some of you may not have seen. I think it's a news show, and as you know, we do talk about the news, funny enough. But I think what I just said there about Amrabat, Chris Wheeler said it in the Mail yesterday that basically Liverpool were a whisker away from getting Amrabat, and they ended up going for Gravenberch, but they were really close to doing the deal. We'll talk about that. That to me just is a reality bite. We all might feel positive this morning. I certainly do. But let's not forget, whether we beat Man City 6-0 or we lose 3-0 to Brighton, the point is we're still always going to be banging against the ceiling. You know, that's what we're going to do. There's going to be ups and downs, but there's a ceiling. We're never going to go beyond with this ownership model, with the people that are working at that football club. The fact that Liverpool nearly got Amrabat, and it wasn't because he wanted to come to United that he didn't go to Liverpool. He'd been waiting for United for 2 months. Liverpool nearly swooped in and did the deal like they did with Gakpo. So, like Chelsea did with João Felix. Very, very lucky to get that deal done by the sounds of it. And obviously we saw last night how important it was. But look, let's talk about the sale because this needs to happen. This does need to happen, and it is still on the agenda that it will happen. I know there is a lot of doomsayers out there that say it won't happen, it won't happen. It is still going to happen. Everybody's still leaking that it's going to happen, even from the Glazers side, the Rain Group, Qatar, Sir Jim. It's still being worked on. The problem is it's the whole when's it going to happen? Is it going to be next month? Is it going to be next year? But it's still on the agenda and it still has to happen. The club is still in massive, massive amounts of debt. Old Trafford, for everyone who was there last night and everyone who's seen it recently, it is still rusting. The infrastructure at the club is still not good enough. We still have a very bad recruitment department. We still have a very subpar board and CEO. All these things do need to change. Will only change when we have a sale. So the latest on the sale, and this was coming in from Bloomberg, who are obviously a very big business news site. They're basically saying that this was breaking yesterday, but obviously with the game, we thought we'd keep it back. So Jim Ratcliffe is restructuring his offer to buy Manchester United in an attempt to break the deadlock in the long-running takeover saga. The British billionaire is working with his advisors to address concerns about the terms of his bid from minority investors inside. I think what this is all about is, if we just remind ourselves that the final bids, the second to final bids and everything like that, that was all back in sort of May. And we're now in nearly October. So there is a deadlock in relation to the sale. And from speaking to some people yesterday and a couple of people who work with us, we're doing, making a few calls and stuff. The situation with the sale of Manchester United is there is a deadlock. The Glazers want a certain amount of money and Sir Jim and Qatar won't do it. So Sir Jim at the moment is trying to figure out a way to move this forward, because what Sir Jim Ratcliffe was looking to do was buy somewhere between 50 and 60% of the club, keep the Glazers involved in Joel and Avram, but then you've still got 30% of the club that is owned by other shareholders who were concerned about the fact that Sir Jim would come in and buy half the club and they'd not make any money from it. So what we understand with this is just restructuring from Sir Jim to try and find a way to appease the other investors in the club, i.e. the 30% which is held by other shareholders. Thomas says, hi Mark, great result, but I couldn't help being pissed off with the media questioning Ten Hag on Sancho, even after a very good win. You know what I say about Sancho? Sancho. I mean, who is he? Like, it's the obsession with the English media. I'll come on to that in a minute. I've got a good point to make about that. But, so yeah, look, there's a second part to this. Let me just move through this. So this is further bit. Proposals of both Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Qataris are still being considered by Manchester United, as well as a potential minority stake sale. Neither party has been able to meet the Glazers' expectations as of yet. And that is where we are at with this. So ultimately, the only real development on the sale is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is trying to alter his offer to get a deal through. And whether he can do that or not, we'll have to wait and see. But overarching, nothing has really changed. Qatar still want to buy the whole club, and Sir Jim cannot afford to buy the whole club. So whatever he is restructuring, it will still involve him not owning all the club. He wants full control, but it won't be a full sale. He's not changing his bid from 60% to 100%, and potentially you are still going to see the Glazers involved in some point. So, and that's where we are. And I think that my feeling on this is that, you know, you get stories like this, and I think this is just really, really important to bring this in. This came in yesterday from Chris Wheeler. Jurgen Klopp was a whisker away from getting Amrabat until a last-minute hitch held up the deal, and Liverpool signed Gravenberch from Bayern for 34.2 million instead. That's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. And I spoke to a very good transfer journalist about this morning, and they said, well, it was always known that Liverpool were monitoring the Amrabat deal, and it was always known that Liverpool could move in and do that deal. Obviously, what I was also told is that Manchester United's deal with Amrabat is a loan deal. So Fiorentina, if Liverpool had gone in with a £25 million bid for Amrabat, which they could have done because they spent 34 on Gravenberch, then Fiorentina 100% would have took that deal. So then, when you're talking about a last-minute hitch, I mean, look, we'd all like to think that Amrabat said, no, my heart's set on Manchester United, and I'm sure that's what he'd say now because he is there. But the reality is that situation makes me really worried about the sale situation, because that's just a stark reminder of what's going to happen in January, what's going to happen next summer, what's happened last summer, what happened last January. Whilst we're owned by the Glazers, and they've got their minions running around doing transfers for them and you know, running the club for them, these sort of things will keep happening. Now, we got away with it this time. We got away with it. We got the player. But to imagine we were a whisker away from losing that deal. And what would we have done then? Nothing. We could only afford a loan for him. So there wasn't going to be anybody else coming in. It would have been... Last night, there wouldn't have been an Amrabat. There wouldn't have been anybody. It would be what we had last night. And that is just terrifying how thin the ice is for Ten Hag when he's trying to rebuild Manchester United, that very nearly Amrabat was wearing a Liverpool shirt. And that comes down to what we're talking about. That comes down to very positive this morning. I think Ten Hag's doing a good job. I think the players responded really, really well. But that's what you're up against. That is what you're up against. This sale is so important because we could be a really successful football club. You know, I really think we could be, but we're always going to get held back by the fact that we're so amateur when it comes to the way the club is run. I know it was against a weak Palace side, says Perry, but I almost shed a tear watching us play possession-based football last night. It fell all down to Casemiro and Amrabat allowing the whole team to move up the pitch. Thank you, Perry. Thank you very much for that. I've got to just say, because I do think people run away with stuff, analytically, I don't know what people are talking about that we played brilliant football last night. I really, really don't think that we did. I think that we were in control of the ball, and I think it was a lot better than what we've seen recently. But I didn't see this chance after chance high possession in the final third that people seem to think that we did. It was a much more progressive performance from Manchester United, and it was a lot better, and I was very, very, very happy with it. But, I mean, look, this is what Ten Hag had to say, and I think it nails what I think. We made a step forward at Burnley with how we defended, the togetherness, and today on the ball we make another step. Still a lot to come, but we're moving forward. And I think that is from the manager, and that's basically how I felt about it yesterday. I think it was probably our best performance of the season. I think we had total control of the midfield. I think defensively we were very strong, but still in the final third, apart from the one chance Martial scored, how many chances did we create for Martial? I still think that's the holy grail for this team. And we didn't do it last year, and we came third and we won a trophy. So you can still be successful playing how we did last night, and it's a lot better than what we've seen. But I still want us to be that team that is comfortable in the final third in possession, is creating more chances. But that was never going to happen overnight, and it was certainly never going to happen last night, and I don't think it'll happen on Saturday. But that is, I think, where Ten Hag wants to take this team. And that is a real reminder of, where we knew we were going to go after the Brighton loss, is we had to go back to basics. And we've had 2 clean sheets. Not a lot of people will talk about that, and I know there was a lot of rotation, but 2 clean sheets are 2 clean sheets. Onana this season has had more shots per game against him than over half of the league. Like, I think he's averaging, I don't know whether it's shots or saves per game, but we're like in the bottom half. Like, he's facing way too many shots. So a couple of clean sheets is really positive. The concerning thing about this new sale development is that in order to buy the 30% of the New York shares, Jim might leave the Glazers with more, says Glenny Boy. Thank you very much for that, Glenny. I think there's always a reality bite, isn't there? And beating Crystal Palace reserves is great when it's Man United reserves. We've got a big game on Saturday. We are always on thin ice at this football club until we firm it up with a proper strategy and a proper ownership. And look, I'm not going to get carried away. I think there's a very big reason to be feeling positive this morning, because on the pitch is what matters. But off the pitch, I still think we're in absolute shambles, and we can see that. Amrabat was encouraging last night, no doubt about it. Yeah, we've got some quotes coming in from Amrabat where basically he said that, let's talk about what Ten Hag had to say about Amrabat. He said, we made a step forward at Burnley with how we defend, the togetherness, and today on the ball we made another step. Still a lot to come, but we're moving forward, which is pretty much what he said there. I might have already put that, actually. Yeah, that's the one I wanted to say. Ten Hag on Amrabat at left back. I know he's capable of that. He's a player who gives the team what they need and makes a contribution. He has quality as well as energy and the dynamic he brings. I think that in relation to Amrabat, I was listening to his interview after the game, and he basically said he'd play in goal if the manager asks him to. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people today who get the little flip charts out and tell you why Amrabat does this, and it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh. I mean, I'm not opposed to the little stat boards and move your little people around, and I have done it in the past. But I think it's almost like teaching people to suck eggs at time. It's like you're teaching idiots, like football for dummies. We don't need a tactics board to know what Amrabat does. There's no hidden message. There is no, there's no hipster view on this. You can pretend that he zigzags his runs and he piggybacks on Casemiro and he's got a special run and all that bollocks. But the reality is I can verbalise what Amrabat does because I've seen it Fiorentina. We've seen it for Morocco, and we saw it again last night. He's a ridiculously confident player who isn't fazed by making a mistake and therefore doesn't hide. And what my favourite phase of play from Amrabat last night was in the first half, where he moved into centre defensive midfield, and I was like, where's Casemiro? And Casemiro dropped in between Maguire and Varane, and we basically had a back three, and Amrabat came in front of them, and the ball was over with Delot and Varane, and he was constantly moving away from his player to take the ball. Now, we've seen this probably for the last 5 years. A holding midfielder, apart from Casemiro, they hide. McTominay's been terrible at it. Fred's been terrible at it. They hide. Amrabat is constantly on his toes, moving, making angles. Now, that's great to receive the ball, but it also creates paths and other passing angles for the person who's on the ball. And we've been so bad at this. And that's why we've been a team for many years that plays crab football side to side with our centre-backs, because there's no movement in the midfield. And Amrabat's really intelligent at that. He really is. He wants the ball around the centre circle because he's fantastic at transitioning from the centre circle to the final third. He's brilliant at that. And he will receive the ball if there's space, and he will carry the ball as well. But he's a really intelligent player in the sense that he can play centre defensive midfield and he can play other positions because he's a very, very intelligent footballer. And that's what Ten Hag is talking about. The reason he can play left back, right back, centre midfield, box to box, he probably can play centre back and right wing as well, is because he's an intelligent footballer. And he knows football's a very simple game. And you can tell when you watch Amrabat, he understands that it's about possession and movement and reading the game. And wherever he is on the pitch, he's always looking to find space. Because if he wants to ping a 50-yard ball out to, I don't know, Martial or Pellistri, he knows not only has he got to have space, he's got to have the space to scan and then hit it. and you can't receive the ball with someone right next to you and do that. So he's always looking for space. And I think we saw that last night. And I think that he is going to be a very, very, very important player for Manchester United. A lot of the ball last night was with the defence and sometimes on the wings. We need to be able to play through the middle and control the midfield, says Ankit. Yep, I agree. The time is now to support the manager and develop a siege mentality, says Sebastian. Pellistri and Delot seem to work well together, says Perry. And also... we've done that from Perry Smith as well. Well, I think as well, with regards to Amrabat, last night I said that when he was playing at left back, when I'd heard about it, I was really frustrated by it. And then I had a few people going, oh, moaning about it. Oh, you look stupid now because he played so well there. And I'm like, you know what? Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I'm not going to stop moaning. I think there's a certain breed of Manchester United fan that has a standard that's ridiculously high based on, decades of success, and we know what it takes to do that. I'm not going to stop complaining, basically. So all these people a lot of the people who do that are weak-minded, I think. A lot of the people who go, stop moaning, it might be all right, or stop moaning, stop, you're always complaining. They're the same people who back the wrong players. They're the same people who probably think that Harry Maguire should be starting at centre-back. They're the same people who think that Jadon Sancho is probably right in what he said about Ten Hag. They're basically perennial losers because they've lost the winning mentality, because they're either too young or they've forgotten what it's all about. Now, Amrabat can play at left back, but if we want to win things, I want him playing in the midfield. Now, last night was about necessity, but I'm never going to stop moaning about things because I know what it takes for Manchester United to get where they need to be. And if you're happy with last night and you think it's time to get contentful, then I'm sorry, we'll get slapped up by Man City in a few weeks' time. We're not going to beat Man City with Amrabat at left back. So my moan last night is I want him in the midfield. Now, he played brilliantly and he played in the midfield a lot, and we had no other left back. I get that, but I want Amrabat in the midfield. That's where I want. Call me a moaner all you want. I know what last night was all about. I get it, but I want him in the midfield, and the sooner he's in the midfield, the better. He admitted himself last night that he's not at the level he needs to be. He needs to play games. I want Amrabat in the midfield next to Casemiro against Crystal Palace at the weekend, because if he's not, I think it weakens our chances of winning. And we play Man City in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. We've got to work on that midfield. I mean, look, I don't want to see Amrabat at left back again, because I think we've got a midfield now that we need to work on, i.e. Amrabat and Casemiro, because when we play Man City, we're going to need that. There's no combination of Casemiro, Mount, Bruno, Eriksen, McTominay, Mabry that's going to do anything against Man City. We need to work on that Amrabat and Casemiro midfield. And I tell you what, here's one to stick in your pipe. We need to go and buy another one in the summer, because the way I envisage it, Amrabat and Casemiro are the fundamentals of our midfield for the next year. Well, what if one of them gets injured? So I actually want another one. I want another player like that. I want 3, because I want 2 of them to start. So I want a rotational option there. Now, maybe it's going to be Mainu. Hopefully it is. But I think we found something there, and I think we need to work on it. I want to just talk about this as well. A few comments coming in from Ten Hag, but he had some things to say about Garnacho, which you might find interesting. So just keep in your mind the Sancho stuff. So Garnacho, you saw that at the start of the season we played him as a starter. His contribution was not enough, but he also had some good actions. We see that he is always a threat in the game, even when he's not playing very well. He must learn that when he does his defensive work, he will always have his moments and he will always be decisive because he is great. Now, obviously, maybe lost in translation for some people what Ten Hag is saying there. But what I picked up on there is that Ten Hag is basically saying that he gave him a chance at the start of the season and the defensive work wasn't where it needed to be. And what he also is basically saying is that you can still put the defensive work in and get those moments in attack. I mean, would you take Gnabry and Todibo in January, says Adrianos? I don't think Gnabry's available, mate. Anyway, back to reality. So, yeah, I think with Garnacho, what he's basically saying there is defensive work rate wasn't where he wanted it to be. And what Ten Hag is saying is that you can still put a lot of work in defensively and get the attacking moments. So I think that's what Ten Hag is saying there, is that with Garnacho, he's still very much a work in progress and he wants to see more. And he actually goes on to say that. If I expect more from Garnacho without the ball also, but it's not just the game without the ball, I want to see, like today, that he enters the box in the right place to finish. So, look, he's really hammering home here that he wants to see more defensive work from Garnacho because it's not giving him what he wants at the moment. But it's completely normal for a player of his age to have a lot of room for improvement. Everyone loves him, the fans love him, the team loves him, I love him, but we also have to be demanding with him and push him. And I think ultimately that's sort of a tour de force of Ten Hag there. He's saying, look, defensively I want more from him, and he needs to understand that he's got to give more defensively. But then he ends it with, it's normal for a player who is 18 to have a lot of room for improvement. And the love is there for him from the manager, from the players, and from the fans. And this just really emphasises a couple of things for me. One, what he said about Sancho. Sancho's not been treated any differently to Garnacho. And yet, I don't think Garnacho is going to react to that badly. Because there is the criticism, there is the room for improvement, but there is also the praise that there's a really talented player there. And Ten Hag said it himself, and we keep saying it. The thing about Garnacho is that I'm not saying he has a consistent 90 minutes, but there is always a contribution. And that goal last night, it's a contribution, isn't it? It's 1-0 because Garnacho scores. He's a player that just has this amazing ability to make something happen. And that is invaluable in the modern game. And there is so much room for improvement, as Ten Hag says. Now, a lot of people in the chat, and I knew this would happen, are saying, how can he be getting on about Garnacho's work rate when Rashford's work rate defensively is non-existent? Well, I think there's a bit of a myth around that with Rashford as well. I think Rashford will and has put the work in. But comparing Rashford to Garnacho isn't going to help anybody. The point is that Ten Hag has an 18-year-old that he probably doesn't want to see a 23-year-old Garnacho with a bad attitude. And I think what he's trying to do with an 18-year-old, considering Rashford's 25 now, Jadon Sancho's 23, Antony's into his early 20s, this is why you shouldn't compare people, because Rashford is a different thing for Ten Hag to manage, and so is Sancho, and so is Antony. Garnacho's an 18-year-old who 100% should be being told by the manager, you need to work harder, because ultimately that's going to set him in. You look at Cristiano Ronaldo, his whole career is based on hard work, physically and on the pitch. Ten Hag's Project Garnacho should not be compared to Ten Hag's Project Rashford. You know, he's not trying to build two players the same. What he's trying to do is distract and focus an 18-year-old who's got the world at his feet, who could easily be distracted by external factors. And he's just trying to say to Garnacho, look, you're a very talented player. We all really love you here. But, you know, I want you to work hard. I want you to work hard now at 18 so that by the time you're hitting 21, 22, you're hitting the ceiling. Because I've said this before, Garnacho's potential is more than Rashford. It's more than Sancho. It's more than Antony. Because he's already doing what they do at 18. He's making an impact in games. Some would say he's making more of an impact. So if he's doing that at 18, factually, he is going to grow over the next 3 years way more than they're going to grow over the next 3 years because he's 18. So if he's like this at 18, what could he be in a year? I mean, I think this is why it's so important. I mean, I had somebody tag me yesterday, and I almost, you know, I don't normally reply, and I wasn't going to, but I did just sort of laugh because they quote tweeted my tweet from Saturday saying that I'm worried about Garnacho, he's not getting enough minutes. And then they quote tweeted it and said, man was worried about Garnacho, leave it to him. And I was like, but that's a Carabao Cup game against Crystal Palace reserves. This is a guy that, you know, tore the FA Cup final up, our only player. This is a guy that scored winners in the Premier League. Like, I'm sorry, I still go back to what I said on Saturday. I'm still a little bit worried about Garnacho in his game time because I think he's good enough to start games for Manchester United. But if we don't sub Rashford and we don't sub Bruno and they're playing on the wings, Garnacho's going to get a reduced game time. So will Pellistri, so will Martial. And this player needs minutes. If he plays 30 games this season, he'll be a lot better player than he'll be if he plays 10. And that's my point about Garnacho. What he is at 18, in a year's time at 19, could be scary, but we've got to get him on the pitch. He's got to be on the pitch, and he's got to be allowed to make mistakes and improve, and that's the challenge for Ten Hag. Mark, watching you since Ollie's Europa League final. Love you so much. It's my birthday today and I'm turning 19. Love from South Africa. Glazers out, says the boss. Off. There we go. Well, happy birthday to you, the boss. Hope you have a good day. And Ankit says a lot of the ball last night was with the defence and sometimes on the wings. I've done that one from Ankit. I don't know why that's reappeared. I don't know what that's all about. Apologies for that. A couple of other bits from Eric Ten Hag. We've spoken about the sale. We've spoken about look at that. That terrifies me. That's just terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Ten Hag on Amrabat and Maguire. I tell you what, I think Sky Sports have got shares in Harry Maguire. I was doing my match reaction last night. They had a minute section on him. Every question they asked Ten Hag, I mean, it's just so it's not even subtle, is it? I mean, it's literally. What did you think about the man of the match and Harry Maguire? You know, it's nauseating. It's absolutely nauseating how the mainstream ram Harry Maguire down our throats. I don't even know if it's got anything to do with Maguire. I think it's just an obsessive English media. Look, fifth choice centre-back has decent game. Why does Ten Hag have to be asked about him all the time? You know what I would say to that as well? Why is Ten Hag being asked about his fifth choice centre-back when his first choice centre-back, who was captain, was absolutely superb last night? Varane was brilliant. Now, if Maguire had put a performance in like Varane, I'd understand Sky Sports asking questions, but they don't even ask a question. I don't think many young people do this now anymore, but when I was young, when I was like 8, 9, 10 watching football, I'd have to listen to that. And, if I was thick, I might actually think Maguire is some sort of genius. But I think the youth and everybody today is educated enough about football to know who the real good players are. But it is appalling media reporting how they ignore the better players to push a British bias. Because Varane last night was, unbelievable. Like the first 10 minutes, he set the tone from the back. He was sprinting here, there. He was getting the ball and whacking it 40 metres, really getting the tempo going. I thought Varane last night it just shows you how much we miss him. I think Varane is so important to this Ten Hag side. And I don't think he got one mention by anybody last night, apart from you lot. It's really annoying because it's Maguire this, Maguire that. They actually had a 60-second clip of Maguire passing the ball 10 yards and blocking a cross. It was ridiculous. And I think, why? Why are you doing that? We're Manchester United. Why are we being shown a clip about him? Why is Sky becoming the Harry Maguire PR campaign? It's ridiculous. And football fans are way too educated to know what they know what you're doing. Doesn't do Maguire any favours. Maguire's not going to start on Saturday. And not unless Lindelof, Evans and Martinez are injured. He's not going to play on Saturday. It'll be Varane and Martinez or Lindelof. Who, again, Lindelof was brilliant second half. No compilation of him either. Wrong passport. But he said this, Amrabat's a player that will give the team what they need. He gives quality, energy and a dynamic to the team. Harry Maguire was solid. I mean, even Ten Hag is embarrassed by the question, isn't he? It's like, what are you throwing in a player like that with a player like that? He was asked about Sancho as well. Forget the Maguire stuff. I absolutely do not agree with this. I don't know why he's being asked about Jadon Sancho after a performance like that last night. I don't talk about players who are not available. I don't know about him deleting his Instagram. It's up to him. I mean, the media is mad that Eric's sack campaign didn't work, says Fred. Oh, it won't have gone anywhere, but you're right. But it's a Man United manager cannot just manage a team, can he? There's always got to be an obsession with British players. Where's this British player? Where's that British player? Why aren't you doing this? Why are you not doing that? I mean, look, why are they asking him questions about Jadon Sancho? It's a waste of oxygen. Why ask? Because we know the situation. He won't apologise, so he's not part of the team. he won't apologise, so he's not in the first team training dressing room. He won't apologise, so he's not allowed in the canteen. So why is Eric Ten Hag being asked about his bloody Instagram? Like, it's well established he won't apologise. So until he apologises, why ask him? Exactly. Like Subham says, Sancho. Do we and look, to be absolutely blunt, I hope Jadon's got great people around him and the support he needs around him, because I think he's getting bad advice, but I hope he has got the right people around him, and that's on a human level, absolutely 100%. I think he's a good player. I don't know him personally, and I hope he can sort himself out and you know, get the content and happiness that he clearly craves. But on a purely footballing level, do we miss Jadon Sancho? Absolutely not. It's a problem we don't need. Like, you don't need that problem. And look, it got to this point with Ronaldo a year ago. So it's not, you know, I love Ronaldo. And I think Sancho's a good player. But I think it got to the point with Ronaldo last year, where, especially after the Piers Morgan interview, where you were just like, it's not solvable. I wish it was, but it's not. That's life. And I look at the Sancho situation and I go, as soon as he comes back, if he's not on the bench, they'll be asking questions about it. I mean, it's another Maguire scenario, isn't it? It's another, if he brings Sancho back, they're going to ask him every game, is Sancho going to play? Why wasn't he on the bench? Why did he get 10 minutes? What did you think about him? And I look at it and I go, the reward doesn't outweigh the risk. Like, I'm sure he will be coming back at some point, but what does Sancho do for Pellistri? What does Sancho do for Ahmad? What does it do for Mount? What does it do for Bruno? What does it do for Martial? What does it do for Højlund? What does it do for Rashford? What does it do for Garnacho? You know, I want to see Garnacho and Pellistri get more minutes. You bring Sancho into the equation and it's like, well, you've got to give him minutes as well now. And I just think I look at it last night, and I'm not saying we're out the woods at all. We're not out the woods. Like, we've got some games that I would look at and go, we're not probably good enough to win those games. But there is definitely a camaraderie. I wouldn't quite say a chemistry yet, but there is a strong group mentality there at the moment. And I just think, you know, is it the end of the world if Sancho decides not to apologise for another couple of weeks? I don't think it is. I think the team at the moment, and I think privately, Ten Hag will think the same. I think Ten Hag will be very happy with his team's mentality in response to dressing room leaks on Friday, all the Sancho stuff, all the negative media. I think the team has responded really, really well. And I think sometimes you can miss a player through injury, suspension, and you're like, I can't wait for them to come back. But I think with Sancho at the moment, it's like, well, he wasn't a first-team player, really, and I don't necessarily massively miss him at the moment. And honestly, you could almost say, well, look, it's a very different circumstance, but we're doing well at the moment without Sancho and Anthony. And, ideally, you want both back. Obviously, very different circumstances. You want both back because it makes you stronger. But, you know, the whole point of last night was to build on that and build on the Burnley game. And we've got a big game on Saturday, and people like Bruno and Rashford didn't even play. Hopefully Martinez will come back as well. The story on supporters are working too much with the price tag, says Fred. And Garnacho's getting plenty of game time, played 4 out of 6 Premier League games this season, including 2 starts plus 90 minutes yesterday, says Duncan. I disagree. I don't think he's getting enough game time at all. I think he should have come on against Burnley. Rashford didn't play particularly well, and I think he should be getting more game time. So we'll agree to differ there. I think he's too good to be dealing with 20 minutes here and there, but we'll see. Look, hopefully over the next, this is the big advantage of like not having Sancho in the team. It should mean more game time for Garnacho. Hi Mark, yesterday our wingers play like proper wingers and give us depth in aggressive and defensive. Do you think this is time to drop Rashford, says Jay? The manager sold Ronaldo, is not going to budge for Sancho, says Sebastian. Look, I don't think that we're going to see Rashford or Bruno dropped on Saturday, and I personally wouldn't do it. I value those two players too much. I think they're massively integral to who we are and what we are. But what I would say is that no person's position should ever be set in stone. And I like Rashford and I like Bruno, but if it gets to a point where Mason Mount and Garnacho are just ridiculously good, then you know, no, Rashford or Bruno, really like them, but take a bit of time on the bench. I'm not opposed to that. I don't do player FC. It's the same with Højlund. I really like Højlund, as you know, but if Martial stays fit and plays well, then here's a controversial take, and this is a big if, but if Martial stays fit, should Martial be starting ahead of Rasmus? Well, maybe. But I wouldn't be bothered by that, because absolutely Martial might start against Brentford and Højlund might start against Galatasaray. Or Højlund might start against Palace and come off after 70 minutes and Martial comes on for 20. This is what we need. We actually need, and I haven't spoken about it for a long time because we've been nowhere near it, but if we want to compete with the Man Cities and the Liverpools and maybe even the Arsenals, then you've got to have a squad. We haven't even got a first 11. So we've almost lost our way, haven't we? And this is what I mean about the hipsters who are just, you know, happy for mediocrity, who would just celebrate and put up with everything. Like, we need another Amrabat, because Amrabat and Casemiro need to start together. But what if one of them gets injured? Who comes in again? You're back where you were. So we need another Amrabat or Casemiro to come into that club. We definitely need two strikers. We need good players in every position. It's not Garnacho or Rashford. It's Garnacho and Rashford. We need quality and depth. And I think last night we had a glimpse of what that could be. Still a lot more to do, but that's what we need to get to. Amrabat, Bruno and Casemiro for me, says Ray. That's my midfield that I would go with against Palace at the weekend. And I just look forward to Man United getting hold of the midfield. Like, I don't really feel that we've got hold of the midfield in a game up until last night. Even Burnley, we didn't get hold of the midfield. We've given up the midfield in I think in every game this season. I can't think of a game where we've got hold of the midfield properly. Maybe Forest, but they were 2-0 up early and they sat back. We need to get hold of the midfield, and I think if you've got Amrabat and Casemiro in there, it gives you a great chance of doing that, because you've got the defensive capability, and they're both very good on the transition. I put a tweet out today, actually. You should read this. It's really really insightful. Here we go. Most forward passes per 90 in the Premier League this season: Enzo Fernandez 24, Rodri 20, and Casemiro 19.6. That's the top three midfielders with forward passes per 90 in the Premier League this season. And as I said there, they said he was finished. People don't analyse people's game properly. They really don't. You know, United concede a load of goals from midfield and Casemiro's lost his legs. He's our top scorer and he's passing the ball forward more than most people in the Premier League. But that's too intellectual for a lot of these pundits. You know, they see United concede a load of goals and it must be because Casemiro's finished. They don't understand. They don't understand the game. And, you know, you put Amrabat next to Casemiro. Basically, there was a time in the first half last night, it was the one chance Palace had. It was the one where Maguire cut the cross out. We lost the midfield runner. And people go, wow, it's got to be Casemiro. You cannot play centre defensive midfield and pick up all the runners. It's impossible. You are one person, and most opposition midfields have three in them. How is one person meant to pick up three runners? A lot of the time, it falls on Casemiro, the blame, but he can't pick up three different runners. It's impossible. And it will be because of Bruno or Eriksen or McTominay or Mount or whoever. You stick Amrabat in there, who's defensive-minded, I would start blaming Amrabat and Casemiro for picking up midfield runners, because there's two of them there. And that's what you need at this level. Mark, do you think Mount looked good because of the freedom he got with Casemiro and Amrabat holding the midfield, says Akil? Well, I don't think Mount really benefited massively from it as much as he would have done, because Amrabat still was left back inverted, but he got more freedom because he didn't have to. He didn't drop as deep. And you're absolutely spot on. If you play Amrabat and Casemiro, I'd actually like to see Eriksen play at number 10. I think Bruno would be better. I think Mount would be better. I mean, look, the reality is Odegaard last season was one of the best attacking midfielders in the league. What did he have behind him? Partey and Xhaka, workhorses. James Maddison this season is one of the best attacking midfielders in the league because he's got Basuma and Sarr behind him. You look at Bruno last year, all right, still one of the most creative attacking midfielders in the game, but he's still got to put a shift in because he's only got Casemiro and Eriksen. Like, I salivate at the prospect of having Amrabat and Casemiro and then Mount or Eriksen or Bruno, I think we'll see a completely different attacking midfielder when they don't have to worry so much about the defensive side of things. And Jack Whelan says De Bruyne is a game changer. Look, we've got... The exciting thing is, whatever horse you've got in the race, Christian Eriksen is a number 10 and always has been. Mason Mount is a number 10. And Bruno Fernandes is a number 10. And all three of them are very different number 10s. If you've got two holding midfielders, like Casemiro and Amrabat, who effectively are hybrid holding midfielders because they're not really holding midfielders. Casemiro will break and score a goal and create a goal. Amrabat will transition, pinpoint into the final third. They're creative holding midfielders. Then it's really exciting what we can do with those number 10s who probably have had too much defensive responsibility in their time at this football club. So look, there's lots of options, and as I said, I wouldn't pigeonhole it. Why is it the best midfield is Amrabat, Casemiro, and Bruno? There might be times where it's Amrabat, Casemiro, and Eriksen, or Casemiro, Amrabat, and Mount. But what I would say, without running away with anything, is let's not pretend that it's going to be Casemiro and Amrabat every game, because we haven't seen the evidence of that yet. And we don't know whether that's Ten Hag's plan. Ten Hag's plan still could be Casemiro, Mount and Bruno with Amrabat, as a left back or a right back. I don't know. I don't think that will happen, but this is why I'm desperate to see Amrabat in the midfield. I think he's got to play there. And we'll certainly see some transition in there because there's no way Eriksen is just going to suddenly not play games for Man United. Ten Hag's a big fan of Eriksen. That reminds me, actually, in relation to Eriksen and McTominay, neither of them on the bench last night. We now know why. They've fallen out with the manager. No, they haven't really. Both of them were ill. Apparently, the sausages were dodgy at the barbecue. McTominay had about 6, and he's got the shits. And Christian Eriksen had an allergic reaction to the coleslaw. No, I don't know. I don't know why they're ill. They are ill, and that's why they missed the game last night. And look, again, we talk about Sancho, but did we miss Eriksen or McTominay last night? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You've got a midfield that was Mabry and Mount and Casemiro. You can bring on Gore. Amrabat can come in there. Bruno was on the bench. We just didn't miss. We certainly don't miss McTominay. Eriksen, I still think there's a role to play somewhere, but we're stacked in that midfield. Casemiro, Amrabat, Mount, Bruno. Mainu's got to come back. I can't even. Eriksen, Mabry. I mean, McTominay could be 8th choice now. He should have gone to West Ham. And look, I know Mabry didn't play particularly well last night, but again, I've said this about young players before. What do you expect? A lot of people were happy with him against Burnley. A lot of people last night said he wasn't quite at it. What do you expect from a young player, especially in the midfield? Those switch off for a play from Amrabat so smooth. We need Maino ASAP as well. I think we might start to play better with these players. McTominay, who says Akil. Well, I really want to see Maino back ASAP. I really, really do, because I think if you've got a core of Casemiro, Amrabat, Maino, and then you've got Mount, Bruno, Eriksen, and then you've got Gore and Mabry backing it up, I'd be very happy with that midfield this season. And then next season we see what we've got. Meme says Palace played their B team in Goldbridge's gassed. We played our B team as well, though, mate. So I would say you're on a United channel at 11:15 on a Wednesday morning. You protest too much to me. I'd say you're a little bit worried. EAFC career mode, the Goldbridge Ball career mode on Manchester United is, of course, back today at 3:45. So keep an eye out for that. I'll set that stream up, actually. It's on my channel, the Mark Goldbridge channel. Looking forward to that. We do it Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So back tonight. I was going to make a shock signing, actually, but I'll show you why I can't do it on the show a little bit later. EAFC career mode is back today at 3:45. Story of the day. I think United stand. I'm doing United stand at 7 o'clock tonight because I'm going to watch Man City Newcastle on the That's Football channel. So that we'll do a little bit of an earlier show. What do you think about Osman? Says Grant. I'm keeping an eye on it. Problems with Napoli. Yeah, problems with Napoli. But Man United haven't got the money. So if we want Osman, it's going to piss me off if Osman goes to Chelsea any time in the next 9 months and we've not been sold, because Osman would come to Man United. But for Osman to come to Man United, we need to be sold. Simple as that. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Smash a like on the video. Don't forget to check out the podcast. Links in the live chat and in the video description and in the comments. Really exciting stuff going on with that at the moment. And Pratt Pundit of the Week is now one of my favourite things I do. So give it a listen. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all in a bit.